We're live! Yay! Welcome back to Third Space Conversations. The
Oh,
place
another week we've got it all together.
honest middle. Not who we were, not who we are right now, and just who we're becoming. So, we're talking about the real life in between all of those moments. When is the camera on?
Yeah. You gotta check and see when the countdown doesn't click on your screen right.
It doesn't show on my screen right now. Anyway, hello everybody. I'm Jennifer Harvey.
And I'm Ashleigh, and today we're talking about something that tends to come up as the seasons shift, schedules change, and life starts feeling a little more chaotic than usual. Resetting our routines with school starting and fall coming. I'm sure a lot of us have this on our minds.
It's funny because I was on my way out of the neighborhood this morning and I was like, "Whoa, there's school buses again." I was, like you have to you have to get out of the house earlier so that you don't get stuck behind the school buses. And
Or
today
the school zones.
yes, today we are not talking about, this isn't going to be another conversation where we're talking about waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and drinking a gallon of water and journaling and meditating and all of those things so that we can be a completely different person next week.
I mean, which is probably a good thing, although that's my plan every weekend before I start the week, and I'm tired before Monday ever starts.
Yeah. So today we want to have a much more honest kind of conversation, an honest reset. We're not building pretend routines that really are never going to work for us, but we just want to notice when routine that once helped us maybe isn't helping us anymore. Because sometimes the problem is that isn't really that we need more discipline, but it's that life has changed, but our expectations haven't.
Yeah, 100%. And as I mentioned, new school years, new months, new Mondays, new years, all of these things make us go, okay, I'm going to get it together, right? I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to journal. I'm going to start the book. I'm going to do the things, right? And, I think we all want a clean slate. We all want to feel like we're going to wake up and be different
Mhm.
tomorrow than we have been leading up to that. And it's exciting in the planning phase, at least for me. I love to plan a great reset and a great shift and a schedule that's color coded.
Yeah.
And I somehow still manage to not really ever be able to get it knocked out. But I am so elated when building this concept of who I'm going to be Monday morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, to that point, reset really is something that it kind of gives us hope, like
Yeah.
I can be somebody different. It creates like a psychological divide between, what's happening and what we want to have happen next. And it gives us an opportunity to say like, okay, that was the old pattern.
Yeah.
And this is where I get to begin again. And sometimes that is genuinely helpful, right? But it can also really be more of a fantasy. Like we said, it's what I try it every weekend, and until we
So
find the right pattern or the right morning routine, that right system, and we finally become someone who never falls behind, it is just a fantasy, right? And I think that the routine has to change because as we change and we grow and our circumstances change, we have to be adaptable to
yeah.
to make the necessary changes to function in whatever the situation is that is happening now.
100%. And I think a lot of times we build up, this idea of the new you or the new plan or the new routine or whatever that reset looks like. We forget to acknowledge that's not a real thing or a real person,
Mhm.
right? We're not planning these things within the parameters of who we honestly are. Um, and we talk a lot about this, but also what we're honestly willing to sacrifice
Right.
to meet that. Um, and it's important to be honest about who you are, where you're at, what's happening in your life right now, and maybe start with subtle shifts instead of these giant, drastic, you're just going to be, you know, you're going to wake up tomorrow and be Gwyneth Paltrow and, go jogging 10 miles every morning. Like, that's not a real human.
Right.
Those people exist, but if that's not already who you are, that is not going to be who you wake up tomorrow and become.
Right. And I think sometimes when we're thinking about routine, we're not actually looking for routine. We're looking for, like relief from
Oh,
guilt.
yeah.
or, some uncertainty or relief from exhaustion or a feeling that we're just not doing enough sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think, we make plans for ourselves to be really motivated. And then we punish ourselves when we're not able to maintain the pattern or maintain the routine. And so it's so interesting that as you and I, we assigned these topics that we were going to talk about at the beginning of the year, right? And so
Yes.
they kind of run this category, or this set of, or the past set of uh, topics was kind of around chaos, and this one is kind of around resetting and rebuilding. And so when I saw the topic, I immediately pulled out the Miracle Morning book, right? Because I'm like, okay, routine reset. Of course, we're
Be a good steward and example of what we're trying to tell people.
gonna act like I do this because I did for a while, and I just am not doing it now. And I was like, the savers.
Yes.
I got to talk about the savers and how we need to do all of that. And your eyes just went big. So the savers were like, when you first get up in the morning, to make sure that you spend, like an hour, that first hour of the morning, first thing, get up and make sure you brush your teeth and blah, blah, blah. But the savers are silence, affirmations. I wrote it on my desk, like actually on my desk, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing. And I'm just going to be 100% frank that I am doing none of those things right now. So the thing that I kind of want to talk about today is, when do you usually feel the urge to have a reset, or to change everything? Ashleigh, what's been happening in your world usually when you're like, okay, we got to figure this out?
So, well, I mean, I can give you a couple of different answers that are relevant here. According to AI, usually at about 11:30 every morning, I decide I'm going to make some list. There's a pattern here. I wish I knew why that's the time frame, but I use my AI. We've talked about this a lot as a way to hold myself accountable for my thoughts, my patterns, to try and learn myself better. So usually every morning between like 10 and noon, we'll say, I start making lists. That will usually kick me into this, well, what do I need to do, and kind of wanting to organize my day. Um, a lot of times, I think also a general dissatisfaction with where I'm at or what I'm feeling or what's happening around me that I feel like I should or could have more control over.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the situation, I'm like, why is it like this, right? The answer seems so clear and obvious to me, yet the problem is also so big, I can't get my hands around it anymore. And you were talking about the savers, like writing down your lists, and we were joking about the 5 a.m. thing. I I should post somewhere the amount of times I have had written daily routines for myself that start me going to the gym at 4 in the morning. And
Right.
and that's because here's what's crazy about this. I used to, for about a year and a half, I got up every morning and I went to the gym at 4 in the morning, and that's when I started my day.
Right.
And I remember being very happy. I wasn't tired. I'd given up caffeine and alcohol. I was like this best version of myself kind of idea, right? I was in great shape, whatever. And for some reason, I can't bring myself to do it right now. And I give myself these little outs and excuses. The truth of it is, I don't know if I genuinely am convicted that I need to be that to get to where I am happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I'm also still sometimes left with not understanding why I feel overwhelmed or underwater in my day to day tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still feel this need to control it with resets and routines and schedules and like these very precise boxes that everything needs to go in. And I have I homeschool. For those of you who don't know, I homeschool our kids. And we started a ledger system a couple of months ago, talking about routines. It's a whole, I made a binder, y'all. It's an entire binder,
You
Jennifer. I'm
did.
not, with everything from what they get deductions from their allowance to what they can earn in what their daily, weekly expectation. It's a whole ledger. They can go in with the dryer. I tried to make this. It was used for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Why? because it was one more thing I had to manage when I was already feeling overwhelmed. It was one more thing that I still had to do. It didn't alleviate anything. So ultimately, when do I feel I need to reset things? Probably about the time I start feeling incredibly overwhelmed and like I don't have control over what is happening around me. And I think if I make some system that's ironclad and written down, that'll be what makes it possible for me to have control again.
I think
Uh,
mine is very similar to
I
that.
was going to say, so what is yours? Because I imagine it's going to be the same.
Yeah, it's very similar. So for me, it is right now, I am craving routine reset.
Yeah.
And I am totally being fully transparent. I am self-sabotaging. We didn't record a podcast last week. That was my fault. And it was about,
We were both a little weird. It's fine.
the podcast was about, back to structure without losing yourself. And I was like,
Already lost.
no, there is no structure. There is no structure. So like I can't, and it's just everything that's happening in my world with my work and with my family and all of the, like everything has to be extraordinary fluid right now. And I'm not in a space, as we've talked about for weeks now, that I have really, beginning in July, like I really said, I am head down. I cannot have distractions. I have got to get my business moving forward.
Yeah.
And now it's like there's momentum with my business, but everything else has gotten very, very hairy. And so I think that's why I'm self-sabotaging and just being like, even with this routine, like I know right now I am craving a routine reset. And so part of my thought process on that is my craving for a routine reset, is it inspired by possibility that it could be better, or is it driven by guilt because it's bad right now?
Well, I think the truth be somewhere in between the two of them.
It has to be, right? Like it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I'll say this, without us going too much into it, a lot of what's happening in your world aren't you things, but they
Right.
are things that are affecting your stability and your structure in ways that you cannot avoid. And so I also think, that's what I was saying is like, sometimes just the need to feel like you have a handle on it, like it's yours to contain and like you could decide, and not to justify or say it's okay to self-sabotage. Obviously we always want to be better, and like, we want you to be successful and doing all the great things, but
Right.
like also if that's the only part of your day that you control is being able to say F it, like
Not doing a podcast.
right, like maybe maybe that is a good structure, maybe that isn't a failure, maybe that's you taking a little bit of control and setting that new structure that says I needed today, if only for this amount of time, to have control over my day. And maybe that is a routine reset, right? Maybe that is a setting of structure for you that can be liberating.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it was.
I'm trying to be positive.
I know you're trying to help me paint a good picture. I think that not recording last week was, especially that topic, we should have done it, because I ended up, obviously with Whirl, I had to put it together anyway to talk about it in the meeting on Friday. And so I did end up spending time, and I was like, really kicking myself, because at that moment, that was the very exact thing that I needed. But I was too tired, too frustrated, too all of the things that we talk about. Yes, no, we shouldn't just push through, but also don't self-sabotage, right? So I should have towed the line and made sure that we got the podcast done. It would have, all the things. But now when we're thinking about this routine reset, I think, as you and I have both referenced, doing this very thing, doing the podcast, has helped you and I both in helping to provide some structure around our week.
Yeah.
Because we know we have to be here at this time, doing this thing at the same time together, right? And you're counting on me, I'm counting on you to be here. And so I think that has provided me, even just in that space, it's provided me some structure. So Um, I think that I just am at a place right now where I kind of have to build my routine around that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Again, like I am notorious for overcomplicated plans,
Yeah.
right? Because that gives me the illusion that I can control more than I really can. And it horrendously discounts something happening in my workday or one of my kids not doing what they're supposed to be doing and me like it negates all of that. And I think whatever place we can find as that, like, this is the grounding pillar of where we start and what we can build from and we can come back to, whatever that is, embrace it and work with it, right? And if even if it's, I was joking before of like for me it's I know I have to work pretty much every day between 8 and 6 and then
Yeah.
we have this. Like I have to be out of bed even though I like work from home. I have to be out of bed and ready to engage no later than 8 a.m., right?
Right.
That's a standard consistent thing. And
Mhm.
I know I have Sundays off, right? So like I've been trying to build out from there. Same thing of like, cool, I haven't made it to the gym once this week.
Right.
Uh despite having purchased new things after being excited of like, I'm gonna go to the gym every morning and like, good job. But whatever pillar you can rely on to be consistent, you just start there and then you just build. And if and when you don't make something that you tried to set as a new routine, you give yourself the grace and you go, okay, cool. And you move on to the next day's pillar.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I think in our days, especially with everything we have going on, it's so easy to forget that we deserve grace because so many people look at us like we have it all together while like we've just got a Wizard of Oz drape covering up the dumpster fire behind us, you know.
Yeah.
And I I think it's okay for us to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go pull the curtain and watch the fire for a minute, thank
Yeah.
you, and like
Yeah.
and be
Just
okay
some
with the fact,
marshmallows.
yeah, like bring weenies, like you know what I mean, like be
Right.
okay with the fact that structure can also look like not perfectly color coded titled boxes on your calendar. Structure can
Mhm.
look like I'm going to give myself the space to just not give a fuck today.
And I think it's important, to recognize that sometimes when a routine stops working, it doesn't mean that we failed, right? Just because something that
100%.
worked for us in the past doesn't work now, it simply means sometimes only that, the circumstances have changed and the need is completely different. So, of course, the routine has to change.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think that we make the mistake, I'm sure we're all on social media and we all follow some of these same things, but sometimes those routines look really pretty from the outside and they're not what they look like. Um, you know, sure, when I was going to the gym at 4 in the morning every morning and I was getting up and my kids didn't have to be at school till noon because the school they were at, it looked externally like I had everything together. The reality was I was barely spending any time with Ben because he still worked normal
Yeah.
hours. I went to bed at 8 o'clock every night. Like I would like, sure, it looks like I had it all together, but I think those images can be very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
And sure, you're getting a lot done and people think that they can count on you, but then they put more on you because you look like you have it together. And I think it's okay to just be like, I don't. And maybe even sometimes it's, don't sympathy seek, but maybe even sometimes it's okay to be like, I'm underwater, please leave me the actual hell alone.
Yeah. And,
You know what I mean? Like the illusion isn't always as comforting as it looks from the outside and as we build it up in our minds and our imaginations.
yeah. And, like to your point, a routine can be effective and still be very unhealthy for us, right? So if the system really only works when we ignore our body or postpone, our own needs, um, it's not actually something that's ever going to be sustainable, right? And so I think that it's supposed to our routines are supposed to support our life,
Yeah.
and a life is not always supposed to become a performance in the service of your routine.
Yeah. So what routines do you think used to work for you, Jennifer, that now are just literally not even in the realm of possible, much less not working for you anymore?
Um, so, the miracle morning used to work really well for me.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is not in the realm of possibility for me right now, and that is, I feel, you know, like here I'm gonna guilt myself and say it's wholly my responsibility, or my fault that it's not working, because I am freaking exhausted in the morning and I don't want to. I do everything the opposite of what they teach when they talk about the miracle morning. It's like, don't pick up your phone, don't do that. So right now I've got playing in my head, you know, the person that's sitting there and they're like, I just don't feel good. And somebody's saying, have you been outside today?
Yeah, yeah. If you
Have
drink
you gone
water,
on a walk? Have you drank water? You know, did you sleep good last night? You know, and all of that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I have done none of those things. So the reason that my routine isn't working is because I have too many, what I need right now is less irons and less fires. And so what I have been trying to focus on is, you know, looking at my life, my lifestyle right now, and the things that are happening all around me, and trying to close the gaps. Right, there's 47 projects that are open. How can I close up 6 of those today? Right,
yeah, yeah.
so that I don't, so they're not spinning for me again tomorrow. And I don't know that that's working, but it's what I'm trying right now.
Well, I want to acknowledge something that like I think gets overlooked. And I really want people to hear that you just did this because I think it's so incredibly important. A, you took a sense of accountability for your role in not having some of the not being consistent in some of these things that you know have worked for you in the past, right? Which I think so many people are so quick to blame it on everything. And yes, there's always external things, but that puts the power back in your hands to have some sense of control over doing it, right? And I think that's super important. I think the other incredible thing that you just did is you go, what I need is. You are taking the time to look at what the priority needs in order for there to be a shift for you to either get that control back or make that routine stick or whatever that looks like, instead of just complaining that it's not there and how miserable you are that it's been robbed of you from whatever X, Y, and Z reason. And I think so few people take the time to acknowledge those two things out loud and be really candid about that. Those two things give you such a stronger ability to be able to shift this moving forward,
Mhm.
even if it's not tomorrow, next week, in a month. Like, even if you're still battling this, you're already so much further ahead and being likely to at some point create that routine or that system that works for you and stick to it, having acknowledged those two things. And I don't want that to go unnoticed because those are not easy things to have to say. And we're on like a public platform. Like anybody can go and listen. Like we are just airing our personal dirty laundry for the world to hear.
I
And I
already
think
made a
it should.
fool of myself at the very beginning. Are we on? Is it on yet?
Is anybody there? Is anybody home? But
Oh,
I do think that that is super important to acknowledge. And I think you deserve accolade for the fact that you are candid and you come to the table with that. And I think that's important. With that being said, you know, where do you think the difference between routine and rigidity? So, right, if you're doing the savor morning, you're this miracle morning, does it become a hindrance and rigid if you're like, I have to do it every day and like you just can't do anything out, you know what I mean? Versus it being a routine that's like helping you positively.
yeah, I think so. But also think we have to be careful with that, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
um, not all structure is it can bring like this incredible feeling to have structure, right? Like we feel organized, and you know me, like I thrive when things are organized, and I don't have absolute chaos going on around me. It reduces the number of decisions that we have to make to help us to protect what matters, right? So we get that
Yeah.
decision fatigue when there's too many other things going on. But when routines become like really rigid and you can't adjust without feeling like guilty or anxious, then and if you do have to adjust it and your entire day gets ruined. I thought one of the things that I in just looking back at my notes, one of the questions was, are you still judging yourself based on the capacity that you had in a different season? And I was like, oh, that one,
That stinks.
and it speaks right to this, right? Routine or
Yeah.
rigidity. Maybe something that really worked for you, that would, the routine becomes rigid because your capacity has changed. And it's important to recognize that and to be able to, again, to adjust.
Yeah. Ben says all the time, he was like, you can make an addiction out of anything. You can
Yeah.
toss anything into an unhealthy reliance and no longer something that serves you, down to counting macros and like
Mhm.
anything that can become obsessive and become something that controls you if you are not mindful and careful. And having a sense of fluidity
Yeah.
is important. There is I want to say he's like a data scientist that became a psychologist. I'll have to find the link. I'll try and attach it below. But he makes the argument that for humans to really live their best expression of self within routine, it's not to set routine that you do at the same time every day the same way. It's to
Mhm.
set small perfunctory goals for the entire day objective and
Right.
do them when it makes sense, so that you are forced to still be fluid and present within your day,
Yeah.
but you can knock off, if it's like, I want to read every day. Cool. If you pick it up while you're on the toilet and read for, 8 minutes, whatever, you can mark that off you didn't have to do it for an hour and a half before
Right.
bed,
Right.
and so sometimes just finding a way to make those routines more fluid and
Mhm.
less rigid can
Yeah.
allow them to be less of a control and more of a purposeful thing. Now, that's not for some people do like like a little bit more structured lines. I I am one of those sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm very hit or miss. I'm structurally fluid
Yeah.
as can be, but I think it's important, if trying to get into a space of setting new routines for yourself, you give yourself almost hedged language that gives you a potential ability to have a soft landing for it, and not this, I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours. Like, all right,
Yeah.
maybe you just want to get a little exercise in. Like, maybe it doesn't have to be that. Maybe it's wear weights up and down your stairs one time. Like,
I think something that is kind of a cool, if you can follow the process in between routines and rituals, right? Like
yeah.
routines are things that really organize our behavior, right?
Mhm.
And rituals are the things that can help us organize our internal selves. And so, like for an example, like making coffee may be the routine, right? I make coffee every morning, but sitting quietly with the coffee before anyone else needs anything can be the ritual.
I
And
love that.
so I think that, just, an action might look the same, but the meaning could be different. And so I think that, you know, it's good when we can look at what we've got going in our worlds and say, um, you know, what happens emotionally when your plans change?
Mm, I don't like
It's
it.
interesting when we had Lewis on, and he was telling the story about he and his wife on the 4th of July, right? And how
Yeah,
that was disrupted their entire day and they didn't know how to talk to each other about it.
because they had such a
Um,
different expression of how they responded to their expectations not being met.
the emotional response to the
Yeah.
day changing, right? The routine changing, or the plans changing. So I think that it's fascinating when we can actually sit and kind of examine that within ourselves. And also, before we try to like rebuild a routine as we're school is starting, coming, hopefully, good grief, hopefully we're getting closer to the end of all these 104-degree days where, yeah, we're in Texas, y'all, so
God
it's
bless it. It is
very
gates
hot.
of hell degrees outside all day, every day. It is. At night, we may get Satan to fart and there may be a little wind blow, but that's as good as it gets for us right now.
Oh my goodness, you cracked me up with your sayings.
I'm just
But
saying,
so yeah,
it's bad.
before we try to rebuild our routine, I think we need to ask better questions than what
Yeah.
should I be doing.
Yes.
Maybe better questions might be something like, how do I want my life to feel?
Yeah.
And what does the season actually require of me? Like I am in a season right now that is where I think I need to be in one season and everything around me is telling me I need to be in another season that is a season I feel like I've already passed through.
Yeah.
What I probably do need to slow down as I'm trying to come out of this. Look, we are in the last 4 months of the year, right? September, October, November, December. We're in the last third of the year, and I have this giant calendar up over here on my wall that is like
I love
3
it.
lines. You know, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and then September, October. And I looked at it, just glanced up at it a couple of minutes ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, 2/3 of that calendar is done.
Yep.
So as I'm trying to rebuild and reset right now, I think that it's important to go ahead and start asking myself those questions. You know, how do I want my life to feel? And what is this season actually requiring of me?
Yeah. And I mean, I think not to lean it too far into the woo, because I think this is an incredibly practical thing that I do think requires a little bit more assertive action than just like, thinking and dreaming about it. But
Right.
I think that there's a reality to, you know, our feelings do play a lot into the kind of, and again, I'm being redundant. I know I keep talking about control because I am a low key control freak. And like that for me is a sense of comfort to have control, to understand what's going to happen and how it's going to happen is a sense of comfort and security
Mhm.
to me. So like when I say this, it's not like, I'm not like some kind of crazy Nazi. That is for me a sense of a feeling of calm, right? Like that's a
Mhm.
feeling of comfort. But so when I think about what is it that I want to feel like? Well, I want to feel like I know what to expect. I want to feel secure. I want to feel like my kids are going to be successful in their life when they leave our home and go out into the wild, right? And for me particularly, it's really hard to acknowledge that those things may not come from my ridiculous 375 calendar labeled entries that are color coded for each of my kids and their school subject, and like maybe that isn't really what I want. Maybe when I think about how I would like my day to look or feel, the reality or the honesty is, well, look, if my kids read a little bit and do a little bit of math, maybe I call that good enough. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe it's more important that I feel relaxed than I'm yelling because the calendar checkoff didn't happen, or the sheets didn't get washed on their laundry day.
Yeah.
um Maybe it's not doing more. Maybe sometimes the answer is doing less and being okay with that. Like maybe the routine could be removing something, removing an expectation. And
Yeah. No, I think you're right. A lot of times it has to be, right? That I think, you know, it's, you mentioned this, right? Sometimes we confuse the appearance of control with the experience of peace.
yeah,
And it, you know, I love what you were talking about, the color coding of your calendar. You know, that can organize your obligations, but it can't tell you whether or not they're supposed to be there, right? So
yeah,
it can't tell you whether those are good things that are on your calendar. They just tell you that it's there, and that really is where you're at right now with the evaluation piece of, do I need less colors or less things on my calendar right now to make me feel safe or more capable, or more that I have an idea of what to expect out of the day.
yeah. So funny story. I'll be completely candid with y'all. Like, I turned my alarms off. I normally have multiple alarms set in the morning. They go off on my watch, they go off on my phone, they
Mhm.
go off on my tablet. Um, and I had to be really honest with myself. I didn't really want to do that. Like they wake me up, I turn them off, I'm angry, and then I go back to bed. I'm actively teaching myself to ignore the routines that I want and the reminders that I had set in place to try and give them to myself. I was actively teaching myself that they are something to avoid and to have like a panic like response to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I turned them off. I turned off my alarms. Now I'm going to be honest. It has bit me in the ass a couple of times. Okay. There's been a few instances where I'm like, really? Okay. Good job, me. But the liberation of knowing that the alarms or the notifications that I still have set for myself are truly intentional, right? That has enabled me to actually have the liberty to do them and take them seriously, because I'm not getting pinged from 3,000 things that I've set for myself that perfect Ashleigh would have done, obviously, but real Ashleigh doesn't always have it in her. So I've only let the routines, the alarms, the notifications be set for the things that I truly know matter and I truly want to be accountable to.
Yeah.
And the other ones, I have let myself have some space to explore a new natural routine, we'll say, which makes it sound really nice, but is also code for me sleeping until literally 7:35 in the
Until
morning.
you wake up, sleeping until you wake up. You just reminded me, this is totally off topic, surprise, that there was somebody that I worked with who I literally said, "You are training me to ignore you." And that's what you're doing with your routines. You're training your alarms and all of the different, like, if you have so many of them, then of course you're gonna get desensitized to it. So
Yep.
you giving me so many words
Is telling me to just stop listening.
is making me want to stop listening to you, because none of them are important, because you think all of them are important and you want to give them all to me. I don't want them all. I want the
Yep.
important ones.
Yeah. Please tell me exactly what is relevant to this, conversation, this situation, whatever. Yeah. And I mean, y'all would laugh. I know, Jennifer, you've probably seen my calendar. The amount of calendar, because I work on my calendar, I automatically have a lot of things in my day that I get notified about that I can't avoid, right? We have jobs, we have to pay, but there's certain things that there is a forced routine to our day in and day out that we can't avoid whether we want to or not, right? I realize that by trying to create so much structure and like start my day before Jesus gets up, and like I'm still going to be up until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, like that was insane. I physically couldn't fit all of these things in my world. And, you know, being candid, I don't know if I'm necessarily happier or more structured or calmer not having my alarm go off all of the time, but it's one less thing I have to worry about right now. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is, and do you want to know what the craziest part about this is?
Tell
I
me.
have still managed to wake up at about 4:20 every morning with my alarm off, which you couldn't have had an earthquake and had me get up to my
Yeah.
alarm before 6 a.m. And now I'm like, oh, let me get up. And guess what? I get up and I read. I'm not going to the gym like I
Mm-hmm.
would like to, but I'm reading. I'm still trying to find time in that space. But it was so funny to see that it was literally like the week I turned my alarms off. It was like, oh, okay. We,
What that makes me think of is when I talk about, I know that you have said something very similar to this. If I am doing something willingly for you, I love to serve. That is my love
yes,
language. If I am doing it willingly
yes.
for you, I will do it, and I will be cheerful and happy, and just it will light my life up. But the minute you come to me and you're like, "Why haven't you done da 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 da?" then I'm like, because I don't want to, like now it's an expectation. And I
Yep.
think it's the same with the alarm. The alarm sounding was telling you, I expect you to get up. And now you're like, hey, I'm voluntarily getting up because I want to,
Well, and then it was every day. It was a failure when I didn't.
Yeah.
Every time I woke up and I missed the alarm or I turned it off still in my sleep, it was a reminder that I
You
failed me
failed.
again.
The very beginning of the day, you failed.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And yeah.
let's think about what would be a minimum, like viable routine. If someone's feeling overwhelmed right now, um, let's try making it kind of practical.
Yeah.
And if someone's feeling really overwhelmed right now, where should they begin as far as like trying to create a routine?
So I'll let everybody in. Jennifer, you haven't seen, oh, hold on, guys. There's context to this. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to share with y'all my favorite possession, one of my favorite possessions. Okay. This is my water bottle.
Mm-hmm.
This is my head. This is literally the size of an infant. Okay. It's like 87 ounces or something. One of the routines that when I'm really, really, there's nothing going on and I just feel like a chicken with my head cut off, and I know that I am losing grip on the routines that I already have established, and I'm feeling that. It is making sure that my water bottle is always full.
Right.
So I have a giant water bottle to give me time throughout my day to not have to refill it, 5 times.
Right.
To me, there is something very self-care and acknowledgement of the fragility of who and what we are about having a water bottle that has water in it that I can get at any time. I don't always need to drink it. I don't need to drink all 87 ounces in a day. I
Right.
probably should. I have eczema. Dear God, I probably need it. But just having that water bottle with water in it at all times, and I make it a immediate priority when I am running low or out of water in that to fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, a very practical suggestion is get a water bottle.
Right.
Keep it full. No matter what you're doing. If you are saying, F it to the whole day and you're just going to like lounge around and do nothing, have your water bottle next to you. Like, it's so small and it takes so little time, but it can help create structure and it can help create ritual that you have that water and it takes maybe a minute to fill it up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
right. It can offer you something, like we were talking about with the podcast, it can offer you that pillar of stability to hold on to. You
Yeah.
got water.
Yeah.
Even if you don't drink it.
So I think that would be like one of the, like we would call that an anchor, like a morning anchor. So instead of like designing a routine that has 14 steps, right? If we're feeling overwhelmed,
Yep.
how do we design something that the smallest version of a structure that would keep you grounded when life isn't cooperating? And that's really what this is legit what I need right now. So instead of designing a routine that has all of these different steps in it, like the savers, maybe one or two morning anchors, and one workday anchor and one evening anchor. So for example, like you just said, your morning anchor could be like drink water, take medication, and look at the calendar, right? So that could be like the anchor thing. You could have 4 or 7 different other things that you have to also do or that you do, but that one anchor to drink your water, take your medicine, and look at your calendar in the morning. Like, for example, during the workday, I have started doing this because I'm doing a lot of work in my self and in my day and with my team about reducing noise, right? So identify 3 things that genuinely matter today. And we talk about like the 80-20 rule. If we can have 80% focus and 20% noise, the most successful people have a higher ratio of focus than noise, right? And so if we can identify the 3 things that genuinely matter today and try to knock those out first.
And I want to throw in, I think these anchors can also be things you already are doing. Like, maybe it's not about changing what you're doing, it's giving yourself a little win. So like you're saying you already do this in your workday, right? That's a great anchor. You don't have to add anything else.
Right.
You already you have to go to work and do your job. Maybe it's just writing down or giving yourself the expectation of doing something you're already intrinsically doing. All right, keep going. I just wanted to throw that out there.
And so, you would have, that would be like your midday anchors. Evening anchors may just be, I know a battle that I have fought with my kids at like all grown up, but still sometimes some things that Macy's almost 20. And so it's usually like on Sunday night when he's been home over the weekend and hasn't done some things. And I'm like, are you ready for tomorrow? And he's like, no, I haven't done any laundry. And I'm like,
let's get on that.
What are you going to do about it? It's 9:00 on Sunday night. I'm going to bed. So good luck. So I think that the evening anchors could be, what do I need to be ready for tomorrow? And when we have young families or big responsibilities with work, I think that one step, what do I need to do this evening to make sure that I'm ready for tomorrow, is a great anchor, because it puts us ahead of the curve in the morning. It doesn't necessarily put us ahead of the curve, but it does not put us behind the curve when we get up in the morning if we have already thought about like for him in the morning on Monday, if he got up and he had no clean clothes and he's just discovering it on Monday morning, then he's wrecked it. He's thrown his whole morning into chaos rather than taking a few minutes the night before. So I think, it's important to recognize that on a good day, maybe you could do more things, but that the routine doesn't necessarily collapse because you were only able to not get, to do maybe those anchor things. If we can get those, kind of morning, midday, and evening anchors done, then we should pretty much be okay with the rest of it.
Yeah. And again, I think having that fluidity to say, if I just do it sometime, right? For you, like for a lot of people, having them timed is a good thing. Like with me, with my water bottle, it's whenever it gets empty, right?
Yeah.
Whenever 87 ounces of water you feel when you don't have the full bottle, right? Like sometimes it can just be, I want to make sure I do these things today. And again, focusing on things that maybe you already do that are necessary. So you get a little boost that you accomplish something and you're not failing at something. I think even having that, like, they talk about, what is it, like the dopamine when you cross something off your to-do list, right? Like, I'm notorious for being the person that'll be like, I just washed the dishes, write that on the list, and now we cross it off. Look at me growing up. Like, I think taking the moment to celebrate those little successes for the accomplishments that they are, even if they're things that you already have to do, give yourself that little break, like, right?
Yeah.
Give yourself that little celebration. I think there's so many different potential anchors too that people can do. As women, we take on a lot. We carry the majority of the household load. In your case, all of it, right? So we have a lot of mental and emotional load. Physically, we're always told we are not right, right? We have our actual workload. I think there's so many different ways we can do those things, from, like I said, drinking water, or taking a walk outside, like you mentioned, or pausing before you check your messages. Just like put the phone down for a couple of minutes, before scrolling. Or my big one, I normally don't struggle with social media, but I found myself like browsing through it more frequently lately. So like, don't, um, limit how many things you let come into your day first thing in the morning, right? Whether it's social media, your phone, a book, the radio, a podcast, whatever it is, like maybe tighten that up. A few minutes of silence or like soft background music doesn't hurt. I say this all the time, but like being mindful not to let perfect be the enemy of good. So having done enough, even if it's not perfect, like there's a lot of nights that I want to wake up to a clean kitchen after making dinner. There's a lot of nights that I clean the dishes, but I leave the pans. That's okay. Like that doesn't mean I failed at like cleaning up after dinner, right? Sometimes it can be as simple as, picking up one room in your house or clearing off one surface, right? Sometimes it's just taking the laundry from the dryer into the closet, even if it doesn't get hung up. Like sometimes it can be just that. And itemizing those little successes and those little anchors and going, I did that. For me anyways, I have found, and I imagine you're going to be the same way, and I think a lot of people who hear this would be the same, you're naturally going to follow that up with the next step, right? Maybe not immediately, but eventually your next anchor is going to become the next ladder up to the thing you want to be your perfect ideal self that you wrote down on your manifestation paper last, January or whatever. And we just got to get one tiny step closer to each thing that we can give ourselves that little brain drug boost and say, we did the thing. And sometimes that is good enough. And like not letting perfect be the enemy of good is so important, because the defeat really makes it harder to even do these things, to even have routines, to follow routines, to stay consistent to them, when they just become reminders of how we failed. versus if we can make them reminders of where we've had successes, they're so much easier to maintain and even add more in or work harder or take on bigger tasks that we don't have to itemize out so tightly.
Well, and one thing that I think, could be a really important anchor that I have noticed in many areas of my life. Many times I have seen this, and I tend to be a bit, even though my life has been anything but traditional, right? I have had to do things.
Cheers to that.
I am very much aware of creating a transition between work and home.
Oof, that's a good one.
And how important that is. And when we work from home, or when a job like mine where it's very much my life, right? Because it is a very social thing. When I'm out, I may see clients. I may, there's people are, not that I think that people recognize me or anything like that, but I also wouldn't want somebody, there's been a lot of decisions that I've made in my life just based on, I would not want somebody to see me do something, and then all of a sudden they walk into my office and they're like, oh, there's no way I could trust that lady with my money. I saw her
X, Y, and Z
on a table in Vegas, 2 months ago or something. You know what I mean? Like, so
I might trust you more with my money if that was the case. I'm just gonna say, I'm just kidding.
But like, I think that it is so important for us to leave space or time for us to transition from work mode to family mode, work mode to soft mode. And I went out to, Jay and I actually kind of had a spontaneous thing last night where he had a friend that's in town from, they used to live here. They moved up to Milwaukee. He's in town. So he kind of called me last minute and said, hey, guy's in town. He wants to meet for shisha, which I guess is tobacco or what. I don't know what it is. It's, you smoke these. Do you know what it is? Like,
yes, I do know. Yeah.
Hookah.
It's like a hookah.
That's what it is. Hookah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, cool, that sounds fun. And so like having that, one of the things that Jay said to me last night was, I miss you being soft. And I said, I am more stressed right now than I have been probably in my entire life. There is no room for soft Jennifer right now. You get balls to the wall. The world is on fire. I got to handle everything on my own because nobody is coming to save me.
But
and
you've
nobody's
got everything coming at you. You have to have that shell. You have to be the turtle. You can be soft all on the inside. That's great. But like right now, there is no room for you to be vulnerable.
Right. I said, I miss soft Jennifer too. What could you be doing?
Oh, ball in your court.
If you want soft Jennifer, what could you be doing to maybe lighten some of my load right now? And anybody who's listening to this who misses soft Jennifer,
I mean, I'll be honest, I like all the Jennifers, so I'm unbiased here. I think badass Jennifer is also a lot of fun. Soft Jennifer has her place. I'm not hating. I'm here for all the Jennifers. Right. But also,
Jennifer, I
might be a lunatic.
Soft, whoever you love, if they are if they're not having that time to separate from, maybe it's dad when he comes home. Like, I've seen this in my own world. Like, I walk in the door right now and there's my grandbabies might be there, and it's like I want to transition straight into being Nana or Yaya or whoever I am. I don't even know what they call me right now, but Yaya. And I want to get down and play with them, but I'm still like in this I gotta slay the world kind of mode. And I know for working parents, as we come into our house, the person who's been home with, say, the kids, right, has been by themselves all day and talking to children. And I have been listening to my partner who's training me to ignore him all day long. So all I want is quiet. And you walk in the door and you're hit with, Mom, Grandma, yeah, what's for dinner, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh my, I don't even want it. So maybe it's that 10 minutes in the car. Give yourself a minute to transition from the workspace to the home space, or the home space to the workspace, so that you're not bringing all of the blah, 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 back into work too when you have to go and meet with a client, right?
And to your point, again, when we talk about personal responsibility, right? when you're driving home from work and you know the news is going to set you off, so you're not getting that break, right? Maybe turn it off, right? Like there's things that we can also do to take responsibility for our role in those transitionary spaces, because I think you're right. I think it's so easy to blur those lines. I know, so I have the luxury of working from my house. I homeschool all of my children. My husband and I work together. So I know firsthand what you're saying in like the most nth degree level of interminglement. And there are choices that can be made as to how you draw that separation, right? For Ben, when he comes home from work, he comes in and he does his shower and he takes his time to do things, right? If it's after work hours, unless it's something really, really pertinent, we can talk about it tomorrow, or we can let it come up naturally. It doesn't need to be some kind of bombardment, right? There are choices that you can also make to allow yourself that space. But I do think having intention in that does matter, right? This is going to sound really random, but it is very much in line with what you're talking about. We canceled almost all of our TV subscriptions. We were subscribed to everything: Peacock, Hulu, Disney, Netflix, you name it. We had a subscription to it. And I canceled a bunch of them because I realized when I looked back, the amount of times I spent watching things like Real Housewives and reality TV and all of these things did nothing to actually give me that. Like, it wasn't actually giving me the break from dealing with customers and people in my family that I thought it was. It was more of that engagement, just now entirely internalized to just me. And I realized how toxic that had become and how much of my time I was giving to this thing that actually was not giving me what I thought I wanted out of it, right? And I gave all that up. Guess what's funny? I found myself reading more, which was one of the big goals I wanted to do. Last year, I read 37 books. I wanted to at least meet or exceed that goal this year. I'm well on track. I've got both of my kids reading books that I have been begging them to read, right? Like, I suddenly found that time by taking ownership of the fact that I had given away that time, saying it was decompression time, and acknowledging that like I was lying to myself because it was comfortable and familiar, not because it was actually helping me have that space to like decompress a little bit.
And I think to that end, we have to be responsible about that transition time, right? Like we can't, it's not realistic or fair for us to think that I have responsibilities both to help provide for a household and to run a household, right?
Yeah.
So I have both responsibilities. It's not realistic for us to think that because I have gone out and spent my day slaying the dragons, right, that I can have an exponential amount of time to decompress before I step into my role inside of my house, right? Nor is it fair for us to be, I have spent my entire day taking care of this household, that when my relief comes, I have no responsibility as far as the household.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that we have to be very realistic and conscious about that. Like some people may think, sitting in the car, like I said, maybe if you have a long car ride, that should be some of your transition time. And maybe you can only have 5 minutes in the driveway after you've had an hour commute. Right.
Yeah.
But you can't have an hour commute and then sit in your driveway for an hour.
Yeah, again, take responsibility for that time, your commute, right? Are you listening to classical music, or are you listening to gangster rap that just makes you more mad? Like,
and then once you get home, going in and playing video games for 2 hours while your family's falling apart behind you because you need to unwind is not the answer, right? And so
100%.
I think we have to be really careful about how we do that transition space. We need it, but we also need to be responsible about that. So actually,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to kind of take it to a different direction. So go ahead and say what you
was going to say. I mean, I think to that point, right, there's also being mindful of the fact that we don't have routines unless you're living by yourself.
Yeah.
Completely separate. Like, a lot of us do have routines that rely on other people, whether it's coworkers, kids, roommates, family members, spouses, like whatever that looks like. There are still other people involved.
Right.
And it's unreasonable to just make your routine and your ritual the only priority. Like you have to have a reality that these things have to happen in tandem, and there's a give and take. In as much as we want to be whole and great and have our routine, right? Like, or have our transition or have our decompression or have our morning ritual, like, is that also granting the people around you what they're needing for routine, for transition, for decompression? Like, are you being reasonable about those expectations? Or is this just a selfish thing, again, where it's like about you, and everybody else just needs to like FFYS or fend for yourself, as we call it in my house,
Yeah.
FFYS. Like, are you taking into account that it's a giant overarching Venn diagram,
Yeah.
right? And you're just one of the overlapping circles, sometimes not even all of them, that need to be considered about reality when it comes to routines and ritual and structure. Like, there's a lot of other things that play into that need to be thought of.
So I'm going to go full transparency here because we do kind of have an outline, right? When we get ready to do this, we kind of we don't talk about it beforehand, but we have kind of an outline of things that we want to say during this podcast. I am going to fully read this next sentence, and it was absolutely prepared for me. Did you find it?
Yeah, I know which one you're looking at.
Sometimes the biggest obstacle to our time management isn't our time management, it is boundary management. You can create the perfect work schedule, but if everyone believes your time is endlessly available, the schedule will not hold. Y'all, that one was for me. And Ashleigh, I wish you had said it so that I didn't have to just read it because it makes me want to cry. I cried all the way to work today.
I didn't want to read it because I do feel like there is right. You and I've talked a lot. For anyone who doesn't know and who might just be listening or watching this, Jennifer and I are actually close in real life. Like, this is not like her and I just know each other digital. Like, we are actually friends in the wild. We do things together. Yeah. And so we have a lot of very intimate conversations about what's happening in our families and personally that just would be inappropriate to share completely candidly here, right? And that's the nature of a friendship. But I did think that it was important that you read that one because I do love you. And I don't get me wrong. I don't want it ever to come off that like I'm great at boundaries. No. Anybody who knows me for more than 5 seconds knows that I am absolute shit at boundaries. It is the most foreign thing to me. I don't have them and I have a hard time understanding them, right? Like, but you were talking about having an unconventional life. That's one of the things that you and I share very strongly is we did not have some like, sitcom childhood and upbringing and like path to where we are. I had to adapt from a very early age how to navigate without boundaries. I joke with my kids a lot that I live in Zelda while everybody else lives in Mario Kart, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I have this open world experience and sometimes it makes it hard and I have to learn harder lessons. And sometimes the game is really boring because I am on the wrong path. But I've learned to navigate within those confines. You thrive within those boundaries. You do well when you can have your boundaries acknowledged and respected.
Right.
You're incredibly successful. That is an expression of love to you, is when somebody respects your boundaries and the space that you need. So I think that that's why that was so important for you to like, you need to hear you tell you that you are worth that, because it is so important to you finding structure and routine of just being okay with everything going on. Mm-hmm. Whereas like you were saying earlier, like you don't do well in the chaos. I thrive in the chaos, right? I'm like, light the match. I'll start digging. Like, I got this. Now, I can't do it for very long, and I eventually do lose my marbles, and then I go crazy and AWOL, but it is a very different structure need for us, even though we're kind of trying to get to the root of the same thing. How we get to that path is very different. And
Right.
for you, making sure that you're acknowledged as a whole human is the most important. I'm so sorry. It's because I love you very, very much.
Sorry, guys. I can't read the rest of this section.
So I'll go ahead. If you are not planning for other people's needs, but also setting those boundaries, your structure, your routine will always be what gets sacrificed. And unfortunately, the nature of humans is to take. We are a very takey species. That does not mean we do not adjust for those people. We don't mean that we can't have flexibility. But if what you are setting as boundaries and needs are constantly treated as something that can be fluid and that can always be pushed to a new boundary, everybody else's problems are going to be made to seem urgent, and there is no way to solve that. And you will constantly stay in a state of heightened emotionality and feeling underwater and feeling out of control while everybody else continues to be the cause of that out of control and make it your problem while you shoulder and carry that burden. I am a big proponent of being upfront about, hey, I need to focus right now, or hey, I can't be available between this time. I know I talk about this a lot on here. I leave my phone on do not disturb the majority of the day. There are very, very few exceptions as to people who can actually reach me via text or call. Jennifer, you are one of them. My kids and my husband have an override. If they call or text me, it will override my do not disturb. They are the exception, not my mom, not my mother-in-law, I have friends that don't get the those boundaries matter, and knowing when you need time for yourself or time to focus, whether it's sitting in the bath with a book and a glass of wine, whether it is you are grinding for work, whether it is you are sitting down and internalizing things that have happened in your day, it is okay to block off that time and make it a priority and draw that boundary that says, I need to create routine, even if just for today, to do this thing. And that means you don't need to be a part of it. And the other side of that is, if you don't set those boundaries and you don't enforce those boundaries, that creates routine for somebody else to come in and overrule them, and routine for you to constantly have to respond. We are very simple creatures. Whatever habits we follow will become patterns that have to be broken later. And we are just really complicated dogs. We really are. Again, like me with the alarm, right? I was teaching myself to ignore that alarm. If you teach the people around you that it's okay for them to override your boundaries, and you teach yourself that their priorities matter more than your routine, your ritual, or your boundaries, you are creating and reinforcing that as a life lesson. And that really does have huge implications. So
Sorry.
I'll ask this and we'll see if we can.
There. Go ahead.
I know. I'm sorry. Do you think, without being maybe too specific right now in your world, Jen, and I probably have a good answer for this, but do you know what the other people or things in your life that are pushing some of those boundaries and causing the breaks in your ability to have that routine and those anchors? Do they know what it is that you are trying to protect, as opposed to being seen as cold or shunned?
I think that they do.
Okay.
I think that there is some old habits and then also some extenuating circumstances that are happening right now that really aren't, they're consequences of choices, but not choices that are necessarily being made right at the moment. So
Yeah.
I think that there's no nefarious intent
Yeah.
behind what's happening in my world right now, but it is um, debilitatingly disruptive.
Yeah.
And
So go ahead.
so I think that the routine reset, I think that, yes, we've had conversations around what I'm trying to protect right now, and there was buy-in, and then there's been some changes. So I think, does that mean that I need to change what I need? No, it doesn't change
No,
that I need to change
exactly.
what I need. And so I am very um, comfortable saying, I hear you, but this is still my boundary.
Mhm.
Um, Although it hurts more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to enforce boundaries when there is something very tangible on the line,
Right.
or for somebody else, right? It
Yeah.
becomes very easy to come in and be like the defender of somebody's, rights and regulation. But uh, especially when it's something that's close to you that you care about. And like you said, when there's other circumstances that you, as a decent human, have to take into account as to like the
Right.
circumstances that, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's never, I don't think it's black and white. And I don't want anyone listening to this to be like, you know, set boundaries and there's no, like, you have to be 100% rigid. Cause again, that goes back to having fluidity does not discount having structure in your
Right.
life.
Right.
But if you can be reasonable and a human and, take each circumstance at face value and go, look, this is what I want my life to feel like, right? Like we were talking about, instead of setting 5,000 calendar entries, we want to feel like this. I can start by anchoring with these 3 things today. I am not going to give on those 3 things, right?
Yeah.
There could be something extenuating that happens one day that you go, okay, I'm going to acknowledge to this person or this
Right.
circumstance or to myself that this is impeding what I want, my ritual or my routine, but I can still make a choice to handle it differently than maybe otherwise.
Right.
I think that's okay. And I mean, we talk so much about this, but like, I do not think we can preach or talk about or emphasize or go over enough how important grace is
Right.
with yourself. It's
Mhm.
so easy to give grace and to be like, oh, they were struggling, or oh,
Yeah.
that must be hard. I think for a lot of people, it's a whole other thing to give yourself grace without self pity. Like, you can still hold yourself accountable, but acknowledge that it's okay that it wasn't a perfect day.
Right.
Um, do you know what like? I think those
Yeah.
two things can coexist. They don't have to be oppositional. I'm not saying be like, oh, I did great because I put slippers on today. Okay, no, you didn't do great. But you know what? You got up, and let's at least acknowledge the win where there was one and work to be better tomorrow. Right. Um, so I think that those are all very important things to kind of bring it back around for
Yeah.
us.
And I think, kind of in closing, as we're thinking about routine reset, that we really need to understand that our goal really around this shouldn't necessarily be that we're going to create a life that doesn't get interrupted, right? Because we know we're gonna have interruptions. We're gonna have things change. We're gonna get stuck in traffic. We're gonna have things that happen, and what we really need to try to be doing, and I'm speaking for me, is to create structure that is flexible enough to help us return when things do happen, right? When we get a little bit sideways, and we need to have enough flexibility that allows us to return to the structure of what we're trying to do. That we also need to acknowledge that we're allowed to outgrow our routines, and we're allowed
Yes,
to change our standard, and we're allowed to begin again without treating the previous season as a failure.
100%. And I think that's such an important thing, again, is separating failure from celebrating the attempt or the intent.
Right.
Because again, I want to be a cajillionaire. I'm not. Does that mean I failed at life? No, I can celebrate that I'm working hard.
Yeah.
just to kind of lighten it. But, I do think that it's important, again, to go back and not seeing falling short as failure.
Yeah.
Again, like, we cannot let perfect be the enemy of good. And sometimes good is good enough.
Yeah. So maybe this week we choose one part of our day that feels unnecessarily difficult and ask, what would make this 10% easier? Not perfect, not really even optimized, but just more supportive of the person you are and the life you're actually living. So again, that was find one part of your day that feels unnecessarily difficult and try to figure out how to make it 10% easier.
And to be that person, please feel free to share that in the comments or reach out to us, especially if you want a little accountability or just to kind of have and continue the conversation. Again, I go back to like, subscribe. That stuff really does help us out. We, every week, usually come to this space very honestly and very candidly. We are not trying to tell people what they're doing wrong. We want to celebrate everything that you're doing right. And if we can help put you on the path or give you an idea or help you have a conversation that makes things go a little bit more right for you, that is what we want to bring to the table and offer people. And we want to be able to celebrate those successes with you. We want to celebrate when good was good enough. So we would love to hear in the comments, whether this is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, where you're listening to this or watching it. We would love to share in that and see what it is that y'all can put down. What can we let go of today, when it comes to that routine and make our day maybe a little bit more manageable and feel a little bit less like a failure.
Yeah. So as always, as Ashleigh said, if you would like to continue to have this conversation, please feel free to join us at Whirl. We are Women Helping in Real Life. We meet at the Rethink Wealth building in Austin. We're just south of the Domain. We meet from 8:30 to 10. Come to the third floor of the building and follow the noise. That's where all this crazy ladies will be. And we'll just be expecting you. That's part of our theme now. We're waiting for you. You have a contribution that only you can bring. So we're saving you a seat. And until next time, give yourself room to notice what is working, to tell the truth about what is not, and to make one small adjustment at a time.
All right, well, we'll meet you back here in the third space next week. And until then, go out and do good in the world.
Absolutely. See you soon.